There's something haunting about watching a 5-year-old make breakfast for their younger siblings while their parent sleeps off another hangover. Something unsettling about seeing a child navigate adult conversations with the precision of a diplomat, carefully choosing words to avoid triggering an explosion. These moments reveal a truth most of us would rather not acknowledge. Some children never get to be children at all. Today, we're diving into the psychology of people who grew up during chaos. Not the kind of chaos that makes for funny family stories years later, but the kind that rewires your brain before you even understand what's happening to you. The kind that teaches you to survive before you learn to live. And if you recognize yourself in what I'm about to describe, know this: your story matters. Your experience was real. And understanding what happened to you is the first step toward reclaiming the parts of yourself that got lost along the way. Picture this scenario. You're 8 years old, and every day feels like walking through a minefield. You've learned to detect the subtle shift in your father's voice that means he's about to explode. You know exactly which floorboards creak and how to avoid them when tensions are high. You can read the emotional temperature of a room within seconds of entering it, because your survival depends on it. This isn't a skill you chose to develop. It's an adaptation your nervous system created to keep you safe in an unsafe world. When we talk about growing up in chaos, we're not just talking about dramatic dysfunction. Chaos can be subtle. It can be the parent who alternates between smothering affection and cold withdrawal. It can be the household where emotions are so unpredictable that you never know which version of your family you're going to encounter on any given day. It can be the constant feeling that you're responsible for keeping everyone else okay, even when you're just a child who needs someone to keep you okay. What happens in these environments is fascinating from a psychological perspective. Children are incredibly adaptable beings. Their brains are designed to learn and adjust to whatever environment they find themselves in. But when that environment is chaotic, unpredictable, or emotionally dangerous, the adaptations they make come at a cost. The child learns to become hyper-aware of everyone else's emotional state while losing touch with their own. They develop an almost supernatural ability to anticipate problems and manage crises, but they never learn how to simply exist without a crisis to manage. Researchers have discovered something remarkable about the brains of children who grow up in chaotic environments. These children develop what scientists call heightened threat detection systems. Their brains become incredibly efficient at scanning for danger, at reading micro-expressions, at detecting the slightest changes in tone or body language that might signal trouble ahead. In many ways, this makes them extraordinarily perceptive and emotionally intelligent, but it also means their nervous systems are constantly operating in a state of alert, always ready for the next emergency. Think about what this means for a developing child. While other kids are learning to play, to explore, to be silly and carefree, the child in chaos is learning to be a tiny adult. They're developing skills that would be impressive in a crisis counselor or emergency responder, but they're missing out on the fundamental experiences that teach a person how to feel safe, how to trust, how to believe that the world can be a predictable and secure place. This creates what psychologists call a fundamental disruption in attachment patterns. Healthy attachment happens when a child learns they can depend on their caregivers for safety and comfort. But when caregivers are the source of chaos, or when they're too overwhelmed by their own struggles to provide consistent care, the child has to adapt. They learn to provide for themselves emotionally. They become their own source of safety and comfort, often at an age when they should still be learning to receive these things from others. The child begins to develop what we might call a split identity. There's the outer child, who performs competence, who smiles when adults praise their maturity, who takes on responsibilities far beyond their years. And then there's the inner child, who is terrified, confused, and desperately wanting someone to notice that they're drowning. But expressing that inner child feels dangerous because it might disrupt the fragile stability they've worked so hard to maintain. Over time, this split becomes so natural that the child forgets it exists. They begin to identify completely with their role as the responsible one, the mature one, the one who holds everything together. They receive praise for this identity, which reinforces it. Teachers commend their responsibility. Other parents wish their children were as well behaved. Society celebrates these little adults without recognizing the tragedy of what they've lost. But here's what's crucial to understand. The child who grows up in chaos doesn't just learn to manage external chaos. They internalize it. Their nervous system becomes calibrated to expect unpredictability. Peace feels strange and temporary. Calm feels like the quiet before the storm. They become so accustomed to crisis mode that they don't know how to function when there isn't a crisis to manage. This shows up in fascinating ways as they grow older. They might create drama when life gets too peaceful, because chaos feels like home. They might be drawn to relationships that feel familiar in their unpredictability. They might excel in high-pressure careers because their nervous systems are already wired for constant stimulation. Or they might struggle with anxiety and depression because their bodies never learned how to truly relax and feel safe. The most heartbreaking aspect of this adaptation is how it affects their relationship with their own needs. Children who grow up managing chaos learn that their needs are secondary to everyone else's stability. They learn that expressing their own wants or feelings might tip the delicate balance they're working so hard to maintain. So they learn to minimize themselves, to make themselves smaller, to need less so that others can take up more space. This pattern doesn't just disappear when they become adults. It follows them into their relationships, their careers, their parenting. They become the friends who always listen but never share their own struggles. They become the partners who anticipate every need while neglecting their own. They become the employees who take on everyone else's work while burning themselves out in the process. The process. They become masters at reading everyone else's emotional landscape while remaining completely disconnected from their own internal compass. And perhaps most tragically, they become adults who mistake their hypervigilance for intuition, their anxiety for awareness, their inability to rest for productivity. What's particularly complex about this psychological pattern is how it gets reinforced by society. The adult who grew up in chaos often finds themselves in positions where their crisis management skills are valued and rewarded. They become the go-to person at work when everything falls apart. They're the friend everyone calls during emergencies. They're praised for their strength, their reliability, their ability to handle anything life throws at them. But what nobody sees is the exhaustion, the constant internal monitoring system that never switches off. The way they lie awake at night, replaying conversations, analysing interactions, preparing for problems that may never come. Their minds have been trained to expect the worst because expecting the worst once kept them alive. Now it's keeping them from truly living. There's a particular loneliness that comes with this experience. It's the loneliness of being surrounded by people who see you as unbreakable while you feel like you're held together by threads. It's the isolation of being the person everyone leans on while having nowhere to lean yourself. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that showing vulnerability isn't just uncomfortable, it feels genuinely dangerous. This creates what researchers call emotional numbing. When you've spent years suppressing your own feelings to maintain stability for others, you can lose the ability to access those feelings even when it's safe to do so. Joy feels muted because happiness was dangerous when it could be interrupted at any moment. Sadness feels overwhelming because you never learned healthy ways to process it. Anger feels terrifying because you witnessed what unchecked anger could destroy. But perhaps the most insidious effect is how it shapes their understanding of love itself. Love, in their experience, has always been conditional. It was tied to performance, to usefulness, to how well they could manage the chaos around them. They learned that love had to be earned through service, through sacrifice, through making themselves indispensable. The idea that they could be loved simply for existing, flaws and needs and all, feels foreign and unreliable. This manifests in their adult relationships in profound ways. They might choose partners who need fixing because that dynamic feels familiar and safe. They might sabotage relationships that feel too peaceful because their nervous systems interpret peace as a threat. They might struggle with intimacy because true intimacy requires showing parts of yourself that you learn to hide for survival. In their professional lives, they often become what psychologists call high-functioning but low-satisfaction individuals. They excel at managing crises, meeting impossible deadlines, and juggling multiple responsibilities. But they struggle with jobs that require creativity, collaboration, or simply maintaining steady productivity without external pressure. They've been conditioned to perform under stress, and without stress, they don't know how to perform at all. The relationship with their own bodies tells a similar story. Years of chronic hypervigilance leave physical marks. Their shoulders carry tension from constantly bracing for impact. Their digestive systems struggle because they learn to eat quickly during calm moments before the next storm hit. Their sleep patterns are disrupted because their nervous systems never fully learned to trust that it's safe to be unconscious and vulnerable. Many develop what appears to be social anxiety, but is actually something deeper. It's not fear of social judgment, it's the exhaustion of constantly managing everyone else's emotional experience while monitoring for signs of instability. Social situations become another performance where they're simultaneously the director, stage manager, and lead actor, ensuring everyone else feels comfortable while neglecting their own comfort entirely. Their relationship with success becomes complicated too. Achievement feels hollow because it was never about personal fulfillment, it was about survival. They might reach impressive heights in their careers or personal lives, but the victories feel empty because they were motivated by fear rather than genuine desire. Success doesn't bring the satisfaction they expected because the driving force was never about thriving, it was about avoiding catastrophe. What makes this pattern particularly challenging to break is that many of these individuals don't even recognize it as problematic. They've been praised for their strength for so long that they can't imagine life without constant responsibility. They mistake their hypervigilance for awareness, their people-pleasing for kindness, their inability to set boundaries for generosity. The tragic irony is that in trying so hard to prevent chaos, they often create it. Their need to control outcomes, to anticipate every problem, to manage every relationship, can push away the very connections they're trying to protect. Their partners feel suffocated by the constant management. Their friends feel like projects rather than equals. Their children might grow up feeling like they can never measure up to a parent who seems to handle everything perfectly. But here's what's crucial to understand about people who grew up in chaos. Their adaptations weren't character flaws or personal failures. They were brilliant survival strategies created by developing brains that were doing their absolute best to navigate impossible circumstances. Every hypervigilant tendency, every people-pleasing behavior, every self-sacrificing choice made perfect sense in the context of their childhood environment. The challenge isn't condemning these patterns, it's recognizing when survival strategies have outlived their usefulness. What saved them as children might be limiting them as adults. What kept them safe in chaos might be preventing them from experiencing peace. And learning to distinguish between past threats and present reality becomes the foundation for healing. If you recognize yourself in this story, if you see your own patterns reflected in these words, know that recognition itself is the beginning of change. You are not broken. You are not damaged goods. You are a human being who learned to survive in circumstances that should never have required such adaptations from a child. The hypervigilance that feels exhausting now once kept you safe. The people-pleasing that feels suffocating now once secured you connection. The self-sacrifice that feels depleting now once guaranteed your place in a chaotic world. But survival and thriving are different things entirely. And you deserve more than just survival. You deserve relationships where you can be vulnerable without fear. You deserve rest without guilt. You deserve love that isn't tied to your usefulness or your ability to manage everyone else's emotions. You deserve to discover who you are when you're not performing strength, when you're not anticipating the next crisis, when you're simply allowed to exist. The child who learned to navigate chaos with such incredible skill deserves to meet the adult who can finally provide them with safety. Not the kind of safety that comes from controlling every outcome, but the deeper safety that comes from knowing you are worthy of care exactly as you are. Your story shaped you, but it doesn't have to define you. The patterns that once protected you can be transformed into wisdom, compassion, and a unique ability to help others find their way through their own storms. Recovery isn't about forgetting where you came from. It's about choosing where you're going. And for perhaps the first time in your life, that choice is entirely yours.